Yo, what's going on? It's your man Rick the Dawn, and in this video, we're going to review really quickly the Color Purple 2023. I know some of the questions you may have because it wasn't long ago when I had questions, right? So some of my early questions are: is it better than the original? No, in my opinion. I think that's a subjective question. Some people will think so, some people will not. I know my wife and I, we both agree that it wasn't better, but it doesn't mean it was a bad movie. In terms of the overall score, I actually give it a 8.2. All right, I give it an 8.2. There was not one time during this movie where I felt bored. Every single moment was exciting. I felt myself paying attention to every nuance and detail in the movie. Like I said, it was no point where I was just like about to fall asleep or nod off. So if you go see the film, you should expect to pay attention and be entertained, because that's what it was. But I still don't think it was better than the original. I feel like the original touched on a lot of things, and it was ahead of its time, and it actually still holds up today. Whereas this one, I think, in about a month or so, people won't talk about it. I think that this one lives off the back of the original. If it were not for the original, if this was a standalone movie, I'm not sure it would have garnered enough or the amount of attention that it has. But that is no shade. Like I said, I'm going to give it an 8.2 on its own merit, just because of how entertaining it was and how well shot it was. All right, who's in it? I mean, this movie was star-studded. You had Fantasia, you had Taraji P. Henson, you had Sierra, amongst a lot of people. I'm not going to name everybody, and I don't know their name, but nevertheless, it was a really, really well choreographed cast. Everyone was amazing in their roles. And now you might have some questions about the whole musical aspect. Just to put it out there, this is a musical, and I think that's what turned my wife off. Not so much that she would give it like a two thumbs down or anything like that. But she's someone who's seen the original quite a few times, and she's actually like one of those original heads. She loves the original Color Purple. So the fact that it was a musical was a little off-putting for her, and it might be for you. It just depends on how you go into it. For me, it was amazing. I love the musical selection. I thought they all did pretty well. There were a couple instances when I was just kind of sitting and listening to the music, and if the music doesn't hit you immediately, you're just kind of just dragging and waiting for the song to go off. And there were some times where the music was good music, but it just wasn't like, I don't feel like listening to this at the moment. And when those moments happen, you just kind of find yourself just kind of watching your clock, wait for the song to go off. You know how it is. You go to someone's house, they're playing music. You like something, you don't like something. So when the music was something I liked, it was cool. I was watching all the choreographed movements, but when the music wasn't really hitting, it just kind of felt a little stale and dry. I do want to point out one thing that stood out a great deal to me, and that is some of the dance numbers. I think earlier in the film, you had guys like hitting the ground. I believe they were like, the chain gang. You had some ladies who were washing clothes, and it was so choreographed and so well choreographed, I should say. It was amazing to watch. I really, really enjoyed the dancing, and these large groups of people all moving in harmony. I found it to be extremely enjoyable, especially when I liked the music. Some of the best parts, I would say, the beginning was really, really intriguing and really caught my attention. I love that they just jumped right in. I didn't feel like a lot of time was wasted at any point in the film. It was very easy to follow. Yeah, so very easy to follow. I thought some of my favorite parts came when Taraji P. Henson's character Suge was introduced. When she was introduced, that's when you saw a lot of really cool and fun things. There were some comedic elements to the film. Yeah, I forget the lady's name. I don't know how I forgot it because she was such a strong character. She was married to Harpo. I think she played Oprah's character in the movie, and I forget her name. I heard it so many times yesterday, but she was a very, very strong character in the film, comedic relief. And anytime she was on the screen, you knew that something amazing was going to happen because she just did such an amazing job. I'm actually doing her a disservice by not knowing or remember her real name or the name of the character. I'm not a real Color Purple head, if you can't tell, but nevertheless, anytime she was on screen, it was pretty impactful. There's a point where Taraji P. Henson is kind of like traveling in the swamp on her way to Harpo's little juke spot. That was really cool. So some of the cinematics in that particular regard was really cool. Some of the worst parts, oh man, hard to really say this, but anytime you saw like domestic abuse, stuff like that was kind of hard to watch. There is a scene that will probably upset some people. This is when the lady who plays Oprah's character, I forget her name, crap, forget her name. But anyway, she goes through a situation with a white family that I was kind of like, couldn't watch this full movie without having a little bit of that in it. So that did happen, and whatever happened did net her and got her put in jail for 6 years. So that was hard to watch. Um, but I feel like given the time period, it had to happen. Now, speaking of the time period, I want to say this movie ranged from 1907 to about 1946, give or take a year or two. Don't quote me on that, but that's the span in which this film takes place. And yeah, was it gory? I don't know. I gotta watch the original again. I watched the original Color Purple when I was very young. I want to say like 9 years old or something like that. So I barely remember a lot that happened, but I do remember just like watching it and just being kind of grossed out about some things. Was it gory? No. It was not gory. In fact, it was absolutely well. Let me save that part because my next question is: was it hypersexual? How did they handle sex in the film? Well, they actually did a pretty good job. It was not hypersexualized. It was very classy. I did not expect that. I expected it to be a 2023 movie where they have a lot of cursing, a lot of sex for no reason. But that was not the case. I don't know if I heard cursing. It didn't stand out. I'll put it that way. But I will say this: it was very, very classy in its delivery. I think the most that I saw was Suge in bed with Celie at one point, and it suggested that they had done something. But outside of that, I mean, I didn't see any breast in the movie, nothing distasteful. It was very clean. There were some suggestive sexual situations, like with Celie and her husband. I don't know why I don't remember this guy's name. I don't remember his name for some reason. Anyway, yeah, so you had some suggestive things there, but actually there was a lot of talk about God in the movie, a lot of Christian elements in the film. So it led you, or as the viewer, it led you to believe that they were trying to keep it pretty clean overall. All right, so that did surprise me. I didn't expect this to be or feel like a Christian film, but it did. And also going back to the worst parts, if you're someone who doesn't like to hear people use God's name pointlessly or in vain, this movie had a little bit of that, so that could be a turnoff for some people. Does it follow the original script? Absolutely not. Now, they did have some very important elements in the new movie that comes directly from the original. Like you told Harpo to beat me, that was in there. When Celia is about to cut her husband's throat with the razor, I remember that. Okay, that was in there. Celie's pants shop, that was in there. So it does follow the biggest and key moments of the original. But as far as word for word, absolutely not. In fact, when the film was over, my wife was just like disgusted with the fact that it was completely different according to her. To me, I was like, I remember that. I remember this. I saw this. I saw that in the original. I remember it. However, it did not stick closely to the original script. And that could be a problem for some people. I mean, the biggest and most obvious departure is the fact that right? The original was not that. In fact, this felt like The Color Purple on Broadway. I think that's the best way to sum this movie up. So if you like that, you're in for a treat because cinematically speaking, it was beautiful to watch. Everything was well done. Great choreography, great costumes, great characters, great acting. It was really good. But if you're there to simply compare it to the original, you may find yourself upset. All right, now let's talk about some of the standouts. For me, the biggest standout is pretty clear. Fantasia did an amazing job as Celie. She was definitely prepared and ready to take on such a big role. She had large shoes to fill. We know that Whoopi Goldberg knocked that particular part out of the park, but Fantasia held her own. She did an amazing job. Also, Taraji P. Henson showed up and showed out. Sierra was a huge surprise. Had no idea she would be in the film. I thought for the small section that she had, she did a really good job. I don't know if there's any bad performances. I thought everybody knocked it out the park. Even Harpo. Harpo was very surprising. The guy who plays Harpo, he's a newer actor. He's been in quite a few things, but the way he was hitting his moves, his dance steps, I didn't even know he can dance. I'm like, wait, is that Neo? Or is that this guy that I've been watching acting in all these different films? So I would say, as far as the characters are concerned, they really honed in on who they were supposed to be portraying, and they did a pretty good job overall, right? So anyway, if you're looking for my overall score, again, it is a 8.2. I thought that it had a lot of great moments. If you're comparing it directly to the original, maybe you're not going to say 8.2. You might go with something more like a 7.3. It doesn't quite compare, in my opinion. However, on its own merits for what it's trying to do, and the direction that it took the film, I thought it did pretty well. And also, trying to follow a movie like The Color Purple is not an easy thing to do. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. And I have to say, they did a pretty decent job. Okay, that is my review of The Color Purple. Hopefully, you go check it out. I do think that it is worth a view. It certainly made me want to watch the original again, and I'll probably do that over the next couple of days because it was that gravitational in terms of just taking my attention and saying, "Wait a minute." There was a movie when I watched that I watched when I was 9 years old that was really impactful, and I want to go back and revisit it because this film does give you that feeling and vibe. But I hope that was informative. If you have any questions, let me know. But again, just go watch it and let me know what you think. Deuces.